We just moved into a new place and had a good sized balcony, and we wanted to be able to stand for our hammock to put out there. So searched online for videos and DIY plans, things like that, and found a few pretty good ones. But basically, the one I went with was on Bob Vila's site, and I'll post a link in the video description. And it seemed like the most simple, had pretty good plans and good parts list, and it was all free. So that's the one we went with. So made a trip down to Lowe's and picked up the supplies. This is the complete basic list of everything I purchased. We did the 7 2x4s, and they have them there in two different basic lengths. They have straight 8 foot, which is going to be 96 inches, or they had some that were like, I don't know, like 90, 93, and slightly shorter than 8. But I would recommend going with the full 8 foot long ones. They were the same price. I think they were like $334, so $23.38 on the 2x4s. As far as the that plan calls for 6-inch bolts. I went ahead and went with 5-inch, and I'll get into the reason for that later, just because I didn't want as much overhang. But I chose a 3/8 bolt. Those were 81 cents a piece, so needed 12 of them, so $9.72. The 3/8, the nuts, I went ahead and just bought like a bag of nuts. But they're like the nylock type nuts, so it's got the little thing in there. And I don't know, the bag of 25 was, it's only like $4.38, so I went in and just got a bag of them. And then same with the washers. They were, bag of 25 was $3.45. These three, got the bolts to put the feet on the bottom, and I could have just got individual bolts, but I chose these ones here. It's a 50 pack, and it's kind of nice. It's got like a flange washer thing and stuff like this. I like to have just extras anyways, but comes with a little T25 tool, which you put that in your little impact driver, and makes pretty quick work of putting those things in. Got 2-inch. The plans call for 4-inch L brackets. I just went with the 2-inch. I felt like that was, honestly, even without the brackets, it felt pretty stable, but I just went with 2-inch. $3.28 for the set of those. Then I did 2 stainless steel 3/8 eye bolts. They're 4.5 inches long. Those were $3.67 a piece, so $7.34. So basically, you're looking about $60, $58.53. So as far as the tools that I used, tape measure. As far as clamps, they can be wood clamps or just C clamps, whatever. They just need to at least open up to 4.5 inches wide. So 3 or 4, I think is what I used. More the better. If you have more than that, use them. It's definitely nice. Sandpaper or a sander, I just used we had a little DeWalt power sander thing, that little orbiting sander that worked really well. Speed square, or the plans call for a 30 or 60 degree square that you can use. The speed square is nice because you can use it as basically the edge there to get straight lines if you're marking your lines or whatever. A drill, definitely you need a drill. Drill press would be fine, but drill, and then I used to drill in my impact driver. Pencil, circular saw is what I used. Miter saw would be better if you don't have any of those. Just a regular hand saw would work. It's going to take you a bit of time and some manual labor, but that would work as well. And this little socket wrench, it's a 9/16 socket there. Just couple hand wrenches would work too. Crescent wrenches, whatever. I used, as far as the drill bit, a 3/8 drill bit for the bolts. I just used this little paddle bit, but this one's long enough. It's a Stanley bit. I think I've had this thing forever, but it's definitely protrudes through the 4.5 inches worth of, I think this is about 5.5 inches altogether from here to where it engages into the drill to there, so that worked out well. But you also want a 5/16 drill bit to set the eyelets in there. It's the 3/8 eyelets. You'll want to, it's kind of a big wood screw type thing, but 5/16 bit for that, and then I use some 1/8" bits just for drill pilot holes for the feet. So basically what I did, I kind of looked at the plans online, and then I just made these notes for myself just to where to cut each board there. So basically, if you look at it in terms of, if we just lay this out, this is our 7 2x4s. So the first two, this may be just easier to visualize where you're going to actually cut everything, but on the first two, which are going to be basically your base, you're just going to cut 2 30-inch angles off each corner. So just, make sure your angles are, they're facing inwards like that or outwards, whichever, they're just mirror image of each other. So the next one, you want to find your center of the, basically is right in there approximately, actually the next 3. And so once you get your absolute center there, top to bottom and all the way this way, you're going to do two 30s center to center there, and these are going to be your uprights, I guess, all 4 of these. And then this piece, you're going to do the same thing, but it's going to be a 60-degree angle through the center, and then you'll cut a 60 on each end. So on this end it would be that direction, so it's kind of looks like a little ramp or a mountain or something, and then 60 degrees off that side. So the next piece you're going to cut into basically 15-inch chunks. So I'm just approximating here. This isn't not really too. So you got 115, 115, and then we'll take this all the way to 30, and then this 15 is going to be cut at a 30 in the center there. So if we say that's the center, that's where we're going to cut our 30. Last piece, we're just going to cut it straight in half. These will be the 2 feet, or I guess you would call them the feet. So these are going to be just your pieces that kind of basically go in between various spots there. So that's basically how you're going to cut each of those 7 pieces there. So hopefully that is helpful just from a visual perspective. All right, so just a couple tips on the speed square. Use let's say we want to cut our angle there at the center, so we can determine just by measuring end to end. Let's just say hypothetically this would be the center, and so from there we know that this is 3.5 inches. So if we just go 2 3/4, which is right there. And then this is one mistake I made as far as using the angle finder there. So let's say we're going for a 60-degree angle through the center. So basically we just want to line up, we got our pivot point here, and let's say we're going to do a 30-degree cut, which is what we did a lot of. So just got our 30-degree line there, and I can move this basically to where it intersects that portion. And so it's right on the X, so that's where we would cut it to get 2 equally spaced pieces that are cut at a 30-degree angle. Let's say we're going to cut the end here. Mistake I was making earlier was using the pivot, and then I would use this as my angle, which we want to use our pivot point at the corner, and then this is where we're going to determine the angle. So if we were going to do a 60-degree cut on this one, if we wanted to use the as much of the board as possible. We just want to line that up to what there. We got 60 degrees right there. So that would be our 60-degree cut. And that's basically how you can get some pretty easy cuts with the speed square there.
So at this point, basically what I did was cut all my pieces and got them all laid out and ready for assembly. So I'm cutting the 30-degree sections here off the ends. I think I actually am cutting it a little shallow here, and I had to go and redo a bunch of the pieces because I mismarked them. Anyway, got all our pieces cut and everything. Now I'm just gonna sand the edges off. They're kind of jagged where the circular saw cut, and there's always just some natural pieces of whatever splinters. That one piece was just the 36-inch excess that is basically left over, other than the small angular pieces that we cut off the ends. But yeah, basically just taking and sanding all the edges, got all the corners. That's kind of a before and after. Yeah, that's what it looks like after. Especially the feet, I got them really rounded off so you wouldn't keep you from tripping over it and stuff, stubbing your toe or whatever. So at this point now, I'm starting to drill the hole. So I've got my two base pieces laid out, the two upright pieces, and then they call the cross timber, or the cross brace, what I call it, in the center. And basically I'm drilling through the two base pieces and the little cross brace there. So if you look at the piece on the end on the bottom, it goes between the two base pieces and the uprights. It protrudes through just a little bit. Anyway, basically did one side, then did the other. You may have to clamp. Again, I went with the 5-inch bolts instead of the 6-inch bolts that the plans had called for, and they may be a little difficult to get them started, which is, you'll definitely probably have to clamp some of the pieces together like this. Kind of hammered that through, and then with that amount, there's just about enough to get your washer and the nuts started. You may have to kind of deburr them a little further, possibly with a bigger drill bit, just to be able to get that washer and the nut over it and everything. But I found once they were all tight and everything, it was a nice flush fit. So after I got the basic assembly bolted, basically just cinching down the bolts here, getting it all set together and everything. We transported it upstairs to the balcony at this point before I put the feet on. Putting the little eye bolt in here, and that was the initial place where the plans had called for. But upon what you may do before you get this piece on is lay your hammock across and just make sure. We had to end up putting ours on the top, but anyway, we got it up to the balcony, and then I had my wife help me put the feet on there. So basically I'm just drilling the pilot holes here and then putting the screws in. And this is one area where I went a little different than the actual plans. On theirs, they had the actual base touching the ground, and then the feet kind of came in from the back side, and you were to notch basically kind of notch out the back side of the foot portion or whatever. But I found I just put them directly on the bottom with 5 of those 3 1/8 inch long screws on each side, and that was actually pretty stable. Here I'm putting the little 2-inch L bracket on. That's with the bolts fully torqued down and everything. You can see it's a nice flush fit. You don't have that inch of bolt hanging out that can get snagged on something. And so that's the eyelet bolt. I ended up mounting them on top because the hammock was just sagging down too far. Kind of, if you bounced on it, you could bottom out and hit the base. So need to be stretched a little tighter as well. So this was able to get it up a little higher and stretch it a little further, in addition to that. So I just used the rope that came with the actual hammock, so that worked out well. You can see a pretty good idea of how that lower piece runs through the 2 upright pieces, and the lower piece there is the one that has the 30-degree cut. The cross piece there has the 60-degree cut there. And as far as where the holes are drilled, it's just I just kind of guesstimated on the end of each one, or the centers where the cross braces go through. So anyway, it came out real nice. Everybody really likes it. Yeah, so it was pretty simple to build. You know, it took probably 3 or 4 hours or so. If I was going to do another one, same planes, I could probably do it in probably an hour or two, maybe. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the video, and please consider subscribing to my channel. I'm always building random stuff like this, or furniture, or welding stuff, or whatever. So anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the video again, and thanks for watching.